I'm Sari.
And I'm Haley.
And this is Seamwork Radio. Welcome back to Seamwork Radio, where we share practical ideas for building a creative process so you can sew with intention and joy. And today, we're talking about planning your fall sewing season. We'll cover 5 of our favorite strategies for creating a cohesive plan that gets you excited to sew and helps you make clothes you'll actually want to wear. From reviewing your past projects to building the perfect color palette, we're sharing the planning tips that have made the biggest difference in our own seasonal sewing. All right, our icebreaker question for today, Haley. Tell me about a time when you made something that you thought you'd love, but it ended up just hanging in your closet unworn.
This is so hard because I do this. I don't want to say all the time, but if you've been sewing for as long as I have, there's a lot. I'm going to call out 2 patterns, though, like 2 not sewing patterns, but reoccurring themes.
Yeah.
I think that one is that whenever I make something that's brown that I need to wear close to my face, I love the color brown. I think it's so pretty. But when I have to wear brown close to I feel like a UPS driver.
Really?
Like every time. I can camel, tan, fine. Brown, no. And I make this mistake over and over and over again. I've probably made 3 brown sweaters that were totally flops in the last 5 years because I just keep on trying, and I've resolved myself to never do it again. No more brown sweaters for me.
That's interesting. My next door neighbor calls UPS Brown. She refers to them as Brown. So we started calling them Brown.
That's me in my brown sweaters. And then the other thing a repeated thing that I do is I make special occasion type things. And I'm like, I'm going to wear this so much. I'm going to dress it down with casual sandals. And I'm going to wear it to 2 weddings this summer. And it's almost always ends up being a one and done to the point where I'm like, I don't even want to sew special things anymore. And they're my favorite thing to sew.
I know.
But it just is a bummer when you wear it once and you don't wear it again. And those are the real hanging in my closet things that aren't duds, but just they don't get playtime and then it's sad.
Yeah. Well, I like that you brought up patterns that you've noticed and those thematic things because I feel like I've started to notice those. Well, I've always noticed a few of them, but I feel like there's a few that have stuck out to me a little bit more lately. So the project that came to mind with this question was recently I made the sage top into a dress.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought I would love this because I like to wear black. I like things that are just I don't know, have that kind of romantic shape. And I love the sage blouse that I've made already in a Liberty fabric. So I made it in a black cotton poplin. You might have seen it on our YouTube channel if you follow us on YouTube. And I thought I would absolutely love this dress and wear it all the time, but I don't like it. I don't like it on me. There are a few mistakes I made in the drafting of the skirt portion that connects to the bodice. They're not deal breakers by any means. There's things, I might have done things a little bit differently, but they're definitely not deal breakers. But I think I've just realized that I don't really like poofy skirts on me. I don't like things that have a lot of volume down there. I don't know why. I love the way they look on other people, and I love the general shape of them. And I like volume generally. I think it looks beautiful. But whenever I wear it, I just feel like, ooh, there's so much fabric. I like things that are sleek on me, I think. And that's just what I'm most comfortable in. And so I'm really trying to take that lesson into my sewing plans and make sure that I remember that when I'm planning out what I'm going to make, even if there's something that I really, really like in theory, knowing that I probably won't like it on my body.
There's a theme here between the 2 of us of the theory versus reality, things you like in theory.
Yeah, exactly.
And things you like in practice.
Yeah, I bet everybody listening has those things in their mind too.
Absolutely.
That they feel like looks so amazing on other people and they want to like it on themselves, but it just does not work. And I don't even know what it is about full skirts, but it swallows me up, I guess.
I was going to say you're petite, so
yeah,
that makes sense. As a like fellow not very tall person, I feel like there's places where I can really take advantage of volume and use it to my advantage to like create cool proportions. And there's other places where it just like dwarfs me.
Yeah. I was reading a little bit about Kibbe body types, which I think is, I'm not sure how much I buy into it, but like to some extent, I think maybe it's interesting to learn about anyway. And I think according to that, I think it was like soft natural was my body type, which tends to look best in things that have some waist definition, but not like super structured waist definition, and are a little bit more drapey and flowy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's necessarily like all the Kibbe body types are necessarily helpful for everybody, but it made me realize that, yeah, those are the things that I actually feel most like myself in.
Yeah, I can never crack the code on mine.
Yeah.
I thought that I was a soft natural, but there's aspects of that I don't know if I resonate with. What I resonate with in the natural category is that proportionally, I don't look short, even though I am short.
Yeah.
And I think naturals don't look short.
Yeah. It's interesting to learn about.
It is interesting. I love learning about a theory. Even if it's not a theory I 100% resonate with, I'm like, oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
An organizational system. Tell me more.
Well, I like that it kind of is not overly prescriptive and is not really about like you can only wear these things, or it's more like this is kind of an iconic look that many people with this body type fall into.
Yeah.
And you can choose to wear that or not, but it kind of gives you almost a starting point of looks that you could pursue. I don't know. It's interesting.
I like that too. I also like that it's not about looking smaller or making your body appear a way that it's not. It's about like honoring what you already have going on and like playing into that more,
right. Yeah.
Which I think is like a healthier way to think about like proportion for me, from my brain.
Yeah. And that every type of body in that system is beautiful in a different way, and kind of it really celebrates variety in our bodies,
totally,
which I do like. So anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent, but
fun tangent.
If you have an icebreaker for a future episode for us, and you have a question, just leave it in a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll answer it in a future episode. We love hearing your questions, hearing from you guys. All right, well, let's get into our topic for today. So I used to approach each sewing season by just, diving in and making whatever caught my eye at the moment, which is fun. But I noticed that I'd end up with a bunch of random pieces that didn't really work together, or worse, things that I actually just never wore. So the turning point for me was when I realized that the clothes I reach for the most often are the ones that I really designed and thought about. They complement each other in color, in style, in practicality, and they just feel more like me when I put them on. But that kind of cohesion doesn't happen for me by accident. It does take a little bit of planning. And that's why I've become such a big believer in seasonal planning. When I take the time at the beginning of each season to really think through what I want to make and how it all fits together, I just end up with clothes that I'm genuinely excited to wear. So, Haley, do you find that planning ahead changes what you decide to sew?
Yeah, I think it has a similar impact for me that you were talking about, in that when I take the time to plan something, the chances of it being like a real hit for me are so much higher.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I've never like impulsively sewn something and then ended up loving it, but the odds are not as high.
Yeah. It's true. And you still have those misses, like that sage dress. I did plan all of that out.
Yeah.
But it just didn't work. But I could take that and learn from it.
When you have such limited time to sew, which we all are operating with time constraints, but it is one of the top things that we hear from customers that they have to deal with. Your time is so precious. And taking that extra time to plan means that I can like capitalize on the precious time that I do have.
Yeah. That's very true.
What is your biggest challenge when it comes to planning your sewing projects, would you say?
My biggest challenge is cutting down my ideas. I just always have way more projects when I start that I'm excited to make, and I know I don't have enough time to do them. So making sure that I keep my plan to a reasonable size is always very difficult for me. 'Cause I always have more. And it's not that I want more clothes necessarily. When I look at my closet, I think I have quite enough already. It's more that I'm just excited to make these things, excited about the fabrics, excited about the designs. I think it would be fun to make. And I get overly excited and try to take on too much. That's my biggest challenge. What about you?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I've definitely struggled with that at times. I think that a challenge that I have sometimes when I'm planning is balancing practical and exciting, because sometimes practical and exciting can overlap. Well, sometimes this doesn't overlap quite as much. And I think that it's like a real art to find that balance of like really practical things that you're going to wear every day that may not be like the most exciting thing in the world to sew. And then the things that are like are really creatively fulfilling.
Yeah.
And the balance of that changes from season to season. So it's kind of a moving target.
Yeah, that is difficult. I'm always getting excited about projects that really are not going to fit into my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you tend to be a planner by nature, or are you more spontaneous?
I used to be more spontaneous, and I still enjoy the occasional spontaneous sewing project. That's why in Design Your Wardrobe, we have wildcard projects that you can intersperse in there, because I think sometimes you need that spontaneity just to keep things fun and exciting. And if there's an idea you're really excited about making, there's no reason you can't go for it. But I'm a planner generally in my life. These days, I like to plan things out and keep things organized just to keep my brain kind of organized. And I think naturally I'm just more of a planner these days. And I think that's worked really well for my sewing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're a planner too, generally.
I am a planner, and I have to sometimes curb my planning in a way. And so what I honor my planning roots by always having the intensity of my plan depends on the season. So for the summer season, which we're coming out of right now, I instead of having like a plan with like projects and swatches and line drawings and all of that, I had prompts that I sewed to. And that was really helpful. It gave me structure, but it allowed me the spontaneity that I needed in that season. And moving into fall, I have a little bit more of like a plan for how I'd like for things to go. So I'm a planner by nature, but I'm learning how to unplan a little bit, just the right amount.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to let go a little bit, especially if you are kind of a type A planner type person. Like,
yeah, I'm like chronically type A.
Yeah.
So
it can be debilitating being that way all the time.
And as my job as a designer is planning collections of clothing. And so there is a part of me that needs to like separate my own personal practice from that a little bit too, which is what I'm finding in this phase of my life right now.
Yeah.
So I have a question about planning. How far in advance do you usually plan?
I usually start planning informally, halfway through a season. I start thinking about the next season. So maybe halfway through summer, start thinking about fall and start getting excited about it.
Yeah.
I let it rise organically. It's whenever I'm really like start to feel that little twinge of excitement about new styles and new season. And then probably, maybe about a month before I get into my sewing, I'll actually sit down and make my plan and actually map it all out and make my sewing queue.
Yeah.
That's about when I do it, but it's fluid. What about you?
I would say kind of a similar timeline. I think that really I'm collecting inspiration for all seasons year round, and that's also just part of my job. But I would say about halfway through, I start getting a little like curious about the next season. And then there's a point where I'm done sewing for that season. So for summer, that might be when August rolls around, where I'm like, okay, like I got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
If I sew a summer dress and I'm not done with it for 2 weeks, like how many times am I going to wear it, really? There's kind of that natural like stopping point where I have to wrap up my plans. And then that's where I'm like, oh, but what's next?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
And I look back at all of the inspiration that I've kind of organically collected, and then I start getting excited.
Yeah. I find that that's also a good time for that more spontaneous sewing when you're kind of in between seasons.
Yeah.
You're wrapping up one season. It's not really time to make summer dresses anymore, for example, but you haven't really planned out what you want to make for fall. So it's a nice time for like maybe just something fun, something you want to throw in there.
A little palette cleanser,
Yeah.
you will.
Something easy, maybe something, an accessory, whatever, or just something to take you into the next season. All right, well, let's talk about some concrete tips that can help you with your fall planning. So the first one I wanted to share is something that's been really useful for me, which is reviewing your past plans. So this is something I've started doing more, and it's really helped me to see the types of things that I'm excited to make over the long term, not just what I'm excited to make in that moment because I'm seeing a lot of it or because it's trendy or there's just something that sparked a particular idea at that particular moment in time, which is all of that is fine. But I think it's also really helpful to look over the long term and see what you've been excited about over a longer period of time. So I like to return to projects that I didn't get around to in past seasons and then just see if they still resonate with me. So I think this is one of the advantages of going through the same planning process season after season and year after year, that I can return to those plans and see what I was thinking in the past and have that same process repeatable over and over again. And that's one of the reasons why I love the Design Your Wardrobe process so much. So one example is I bought brown corduroy to make some Chelsea jeans. I mentioned these on a previous episode, I think a couple weeks ago. So I bought this fabric like 2 years ago, and I just haven't had the time. The last pair of Chelsea jeans I made, it took me about a month to finish them, working them in little spurts here and there. So I know it takes a little while. So I just haven't had the time to make these yet. So I'm returning to that project this year. And knowing that I still feel excited about the design 2 years later makes me pretty confident that I'm going to love it going into the future and that it's going to become more of a staple in my wardrobe. So I also like to look through my past Pinterest boards and pull from those, as well as notice what's changed about my style over time. So I might see things that really still appeal to me, even though I added them to Pinterest, 5 years ago. And then other things that I'm like, oh, that's not really me anymore. And that's really interesting just to see those patterns. It's one of the reasons I like having a digital tool like Pinterest where I can just collect a lot of inspiration. Do you revisit old project ideas like that?
Yeah, that's really my first step that I take most of the time. My Pinterest system for designing seasons is that I have one fall board. So I always go and I look at my fall board from the previous season. And if something doesn't fit, I put it onto one of my other like feeder boards, like maybe it's like design details or color palettes or like somewhere else where it makes sense. I get rid of the stuff that I'm just like not that interested in the moment and then see what's left. And that's oftentimes my jumping off point for really any season that I'm working on. And then from there, I can go to like my core style board and my other little like feeder boards and add things in that I'm excited about in the moment.
Yeah. It's so helpful.
It is. And I like how we all have like our little systems for.
Mine's gotten a little crazy. I need to reorganize.
I'm currently working on it and it's so fun.
It is fun. Ken calls it my Pinterest maintenance.
Yeah. You got to get in there. You got to archive some boards. You got to
yeah.
merge some things. Yeah. It's a process, but it's such a great tool. Next, what I like to do is I always shop my stash. I shop previous inspiration and then shop stash. Each season, I really like to go through my fabric stash to see what I already own before I even just begin planning. And this really primes me with lots of new ideas that I can incorporate or just gets me thinking about the things that I already have. And when it comes time to build my color palette for the season, I know what I own and what I want to use. I often build a whole palette around 1 to 2 fabrics that I already have in my stash. It's like shopping, but like things you've already invested in, but for free.
Yeah.
Girl math. It was free. because I past Haley bought it. It prevents that feeling of buying more fabric than I actually need when I already have a stash full of beautiful things waiting to be sewn. This has happened to me so many times where I'm like, oh, this beautiful textural gray knit. And then I go home, I wash it, I go to put it away, and I'm like, oh, I'll put it right here next to the 2 other fabrics that are so incredibly similar. Thanks a lot, Haley. Do you have any fabrics in your stash that you've been waiting for the right project for?
Actually, I was just looking at some of my fabrics, cleaning out my shed the other day, and I found this vintage fabric in my stash. It's vintage rayon that is so pretty. I haven't figured out what to do with it yet, but I do want to incorporate it into my fall sewing. It's like a chocolate brown vintage cold rayon, and then it has this like almost lacy, like large white print on it. It's really pretty. It's probably from the 40s, and I've had it for a long time. I'm not sure exactly how much I have, but it would make a really pretty blouse or like a little dress. I just need to figure out what to do with it. But I have a lot of beautiful vintage fabrics like that I definitely want to use. I'm really tired of just having them collect dust in drawers for years and years.
I vote blouse because brown looks so good with denim.
Yeah, it does. I really like brown in the fall.
Yeah.
A deep brown. It looks good on me, I think, with my skin and hair.
I'll
nice.
live vicariously through you. And someday we'll get our colors done and we'll figure out why I hate brown on myself.
Yeah. We should do that someday. I would love to get my colors done.
It would be so fun.
I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what my season is, but I'm not sure. So
yeah,
it'd be fun to hear.
I have some ideas, but I'm up to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
So
I think that would be so fun. All right, the next tip, this is something that I've started doing in the last year, and I love it. It's been really game-changing for me, which is documenting what you actually wear. So last year, I started to keep track of what I was really wearing each day, and I learned so much about the clothes that I get the most use out of each season. And it really made me realize some things that I wear a lot of pants. For example, I mentioned this on a recent episode. I wear a lot of pants in the fall and the winter, and it would make sense to invest more time in sewing pants because I'd probably get a whole lot of use out of them. I think it's really easy to get caught up in making those pretty Instagram-worthy pieces, but then realize that you're reaching for your jeans and your sweaters every single day. So I think this is a really great way to kind of see how you can find that in-between place where you're making things that you're really excited about, but that will fit your lifestyle at the same time. And so now I try to balance those fun special occasion pieces with those workhorses in my wardrobe. And I have a better idea of what those workhorses are. So it's like paying attention to what tools you actually use in your sewing room. You want to invest in the things that get regular use. So the way I've been doing this is last year I started with taking just selfies of my outfits, and that worked really well. And I do that occasionally now from time to time, but I've started using an app actually to track what I'm wearing. It's an app called Indyx with a Y. It's INDYX. There are other apps out there. That's just the one I've been using. And I've just been using the free version. And you can just snap a picture of the garment. So even if you have handmade things, you can just snap a picture of it. It removes the background, puts it into your little wardrobe queue, and then you can make little outfits with it.
Cute.
And you can even put them on a calendar to see what you're actually wearing day to day. So I've been doing that. And it's really fun. And it helps me to kind of reuse the things that are already in my closet as well. But mainly I like it because it helps me to think a little bit more practically about what I actually want to sew and what I want to add. And it makes me realize how much I already have. And that has led me to want to, instead of just adding more and more stuff to my closet, actually just replace things that are ready to wear in my closet with things that are handmade and that are better versions of what I already own. So that's kind of my goal right now. And just documenting what I wear has been really, really helpful for that.
I love that. I've gone through phases of documenting what I wear with like the selfie method, and it's always so helpful.
Yeah. And it's fun to look back and see, what did I wear last fall when you're thinking about what you're going to wear this fall?
Yeah. And like a tool for like reminding yourself of like outfits and combinations, and like it's helpful on so many levels.
Yeah.
All right. Our next tip is to make a list of patterns that you're excited to sew. I always find that I have way more patterns than I can ever possibly sew in a season.
Yep.
I think that's probably a lot of us. It just helps me to jot down a quick little list of my top 5 to 10 and then use Design Your Wardrobe's process to narrow down my ideas because let's be real, I'm not going to be sewing 10 things in one season.
Yeah.
This just primes me with ideas that I'm excited about that I could possibly incorporate into my design process. And I think that I like to think of it kind of like making a wish list. You're not committed to everything. You're just getting clear on what's calling your name in that particular moment in time. And sometimes patterns that feel exciting or felt exciting 6 months ago just don't feel as relevant anymore. And that's totally okay. Sari, what patterns are you interested or excited about right now?
I'm really excited about the fig cardigan. I really want to make that. I keep thinking about the fabrics, all the different fabric ideas for it. And there's so many different ways that I feel like I could make it. So I'm really, really excited about that one because it's such a classic.
Yeah.
Just a classic high neck cardigan. I feel like I would wear that a ton.
Yeah, that was my answer too, is fig. I feel like now I have a lot more wide leg pants in my wardrobe than I did a couple years ago. And I love that silhouette of the more fitted top. And I feel like I could see that worn as a top, unbuttoned, the top button or two unbuttoned and the bottom button or two unbuttoned, and would be really cute for work or date night, just good basics.
Good for layering too over dresses.
Uh-huh.
Very classic.
Totally.
I love the idea of doing it in a merino wool also for that extra warmth. I think that would be really nice. All right, the next and final step is building a palette. So this is one of my favorite parts of the Design Your Wardrobe process, which is building a fabric palette for this season. It just makes everything that I'm planning to sew feel a lot more cohesive. So what I like to do is I like to grab some paint chips from the hardware store for this because they can help to just show you how different colors work together. So even if you don't have a fabric already picked out that's in a particular color, you can use paint chips from the hardware store just to see what colors you might like to use to build your palette. And then you can usually find fabrics that more or less match up with those colors. You can also use swatches of fabrics that you already have in your stash. I do that as well. So I use kind of a combination of those two things. So if you have a print, for example, you can just grab a swatch of it or even take a picture of it and use that as you build your palette out. Really, having a palette just takes so much of the guesswork out of fabric shopping. And personally, for me, when I go to the fabric stores, we have a really big fabric store here in Portland that I typically shop at. And when I go there, I get so overwhelmed with choices. There's just so much there. And I know that if I'm there more than an hour, I'm going to start getting kind of stressed out by how much choice there is. And so having a palette in mind and having some kind of constraint on those choices just makes it a lot less stressful for me. And I feel like I am following a design plan rather than just going hog wild in a fabric store and buying a bunch of stuff that I may or may not use. So
been there, done that.
Yeah, that's my coping mechanism for all the choice that's out there. It also helps me to see gaps in my wardrobe more clearly, like realizing I need more tops that go with a particular pair of pants I want to make, and then kind of matching that up with a color palette. It just really helps me to see where those holes are and how the things I'm planning to sew might fit with the things that I already have in my closet. And it also helps me to see what colors I actually wear and which ones I don't. And sometimes even incorporate colors that I like and that I don't have a lot of in my closet already. So there's a lot of benefits that I feel like I get out of creating a fabric palette before I start sewing. So the palette just kind of becomes like my roadmap for the whole season. And I think it's one of the most important parts of the whole process. So looking back on these 5 tips, I think what they all have in common is that they help you get really intentional about your sewing. Instead of just making things randomly, you're really creating a system that works for your actual life. So my big takeaway from this is that planning really doesn't have to feel restrictive. It actually gives you more freedom because you really dig into what you want to create and think more deeply about each project. So, what about you, Haley? What's your big takeaway?
Oh, I love that takeaway. I'm a big fan of design constraints. I think they encourage so much creativity. I think for me, my big takeaway is something that a lot of these strategies have in common is relying on our past choices to help us inform our future choices, I guess. I think that as creative people, a common trap that we fall into is trying to reinvent things every time we do them. I see this a lot with people who are doing design your wardrobe for the first couple times, and just like creative folks in general, is that it's starting fresh is so exciting. But our past choices and patterns and fabric and inspiration and clothing that we already have in our closet are some of the most like valuable constraints that we can analyze as we dig into the design process.
Yeah.
So kind of similar, kind of different.
Yeah, and it really helps you to hone your personal style too, I think, to revisit those things.
Yeah.
And see what appeals to you.
And see like the big picture of your wardrobe instead of just like thinking of things in terms of like fall 2025. You're looking at the retrospective of like everything you've made, everything you have, and not making those decisions in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I really didn't recap the tips before we got into our takeaways. So let me just do that real quick before we wrap up. So the 5 tips that we shared today when you're planning your fall sewing are, first of all, to review your past plans. Second, to shop your stash. Third, document what you really wear. 4, make a list of the patterns you're excited to sew. And then 5, build a palette. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys. We've been talking a lot about planning your fall sewing today. And if these ideas are getting you excited to dive deeper into the process, I have some great news for you because the fall season of Design Your Wardrobe starts soon, and Seamwork members get access to this program every season for free. It's really the foundation of our whole holistic approach to sewing, where we take you from design to closet, and we help you build a fun, affirming creative process so that you can truly express who you are through sewing. The program walks you through everything we've talked about today and so much more, with videos, worksheets, and a supportive community to cheer you on. So if you want to join us for this season, you can find all the details at seamwork.com/go/DYW. So that's seamwork.com/go/DYW. And I hope you'll join us because it's a lot of fun. And if you liked this episode, leave us a review. We would love to hear from you. And if you have an icebreaker question, you can leave it in a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we will use it in a future episode. You can also follow us on YouTube at Seamwork Video. You can follow us on Instagram at Seamwork. And if you'd like to become part of the Seamwork community, head over to seamwork.com so you can learn how to join. All right, that's it for us this week. I'm Sari.
And I'm Haley.
And this is Seamwork Radio.